Order. Welcome to 100 Yards of Football. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, hey, on our legend segment, we've got the legend of all legends, the legend from Mississippi, who started me in this podcast game. No other than himself, Mr. Football, Vincent Turner. Vincent, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing this evening, Bobby? The 901 Memphis, Tennessee, by way of Mississippi.
Hey, that's right. Get it right, boy. I better get it right. Everybody back home, Chester and everybody gonna be all on me if I don't get it right now.
Yes, sir. They will be arriving in town June the 16th.
Hey, I can't wait to see them, man. It's gonna be an honor for me to meet and see your family, man. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, that'll be an honor. I'm very looking forward to it. Talk to my sister today.
Okay, awesome.
And basically everything's getting set, and hey, it's gonna be a great time. What more can we say to have our parents still living, man?
Hey, that's a blessing. Family. That's a blessing. It is a blessing. But listen, yes, man. Hey, man, welcome to the show. I do consider you a legend. Over the years, the last 3 years, we've gotten to know each other, and man, I've been impressed with you. We met day one, and saying we got hooked like brothers, man.
Yes, sir.
First of all, just thank you for bringing me into this world. It's been exciting for me. Getting the opportunity to talk to a lot of people, see a lot of my old friends that I haven't spoke to in years, be it from my hometown, be it from my Falcon teammates, my Florida State teammates, throughout the NFL, guys who I played against, competed against all my life. Have participated on the show, and so I just want to say thank you, brother, before we start.
Yes, sir.
All that, man.
Well, I'm gonna say this. Sometimes you never know what your journey is gonna be in life, and as everyone knowing your show this evening, I always tell this story.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought that I'll be meeting an NFL guy, royalty, because I consider you royalty. I tell the people all the time, on your podcast here, and I don't care who gets mad. It's not a lot of people played in the National Football League, number one.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of people that's went in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a lot of people who went in the first round back in the 80s when the game was very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a lot of people who restored a program that, luckily, me and you're a year older than me. I came along the same age. I'll be honest, when I arrived on campus at the University of Arkansas as an 18-year-old, I didn't know nothing about Florida State.
Wow.
Only thing I knew about Florida State was when y'all played in the 1972 Final Four against UCLA and Bill Walton, when they had them two brothers with the fro,
yes,
Ron King and Reggie Rose, both from Louisville, from Kentucky. And yes, I knew a little bit about your program because y'all were playing and beating the brakes off Memphis State, where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
But really, if you would have told me at this moment that I'd be talking to a gentleman that I used to come home during the Christmas breaks and sit down, watch Florida State play Oklahoma, and the guy played right cornerback, mm-hmm. and the guy had smoke, and the guy led the country at that time in block kicks,
mm-hmm.
I would have looked at you crazy about 5 years ago. But through other people, and I want to give kudos to Brian Spencer and his lovely wife Kim.
Yeah,
they made it happen.
Great people.
And from day one, it's been a joy. And like I said, the first question I asked you, I said, well, hey, man, who was the most important people in your life at Florida State?
Mm-hmm.
And you took it from the floor. You said Coach Bowden. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason that we're discussing is, and I don't want to put it out there, Bobby, but playing at a Power 5 school back in that time was only a few of us.
Right.
And it's only a situation now when you look at the game today. It was no social media.
Right.
It was no internet.
Mm-hmm.
So for you to really be about that smoke, you had to be really, really good. Right. And I think people need to understand this from the Florida State family. Florida State is where they at when Deion Sanders came on board in 1985. But however, don't make no bones. This young man in front of me from Delray Beach, Florida, in the recruiting class with Ron Simmons and I think Reggie Herring,
yes.
Y'all made it happen and y'all put Florida State on the map.
Yes.
And what was really difficult, I'm gonna sit in. You didn't have internet. You didn't have social media.
True that.
You didn't have none of that. And to go from where y'all took that program to where it is today, it was very, very difficult. And being an independent.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, Vincent, it was so much fun because, as we look back, the story was a great story. The whole Coach Bowden era, it was a great story in Florida State history. And to be at the forefront of that, right?
Amen.
To be the first class he recruited. And on top of that, I was his very first committed recruit at FSU. A lot of people don't know that.
Amen.
But the most important piece to the puzzle was Ron Simmons. There's no doubt about it. But he picked a nucleus of guys that can make it happen. And, my class was a group of guys who came in. My freshman year, we were senior heavy, Leighton. From a defensive standpoint, I got a chance to travel. I got a chance to play as a freshman, getting that experience. Ron Simmons was a starter on defense as a freshman. And then we had guys like Reggie Herring, Paul Porowski, Mark Mossick, Mark Bonasart, Keith Jones, all of us who came in there together, Reggie Herring, the whole group, we had a chance to sit one year, and all of us became starters as sophomores and were teammates and starters for the next 3 seasons. It made for a beautiful thing, man. And so those days, what can I say? There always will be. It's just in my life, it's part of who I am. And so, but saying that, we got football on the show today.
Yeah, I got a question, man. I'm finna start something here. We're gonna get it going. Okay. Now, I've been in the great area of Atlanta, Georgia since 1996. And this Georgia football country. Now, I don't want to make you mad, but I'm gonna get you fired up. I have some good friends that are Georgia Bulldog friends. One is my friend, his name is Joseph Taylor. He went to North Springs High School, graduate of Georgia State, grew up next door to Ernie Johnson. And some of his friends, we had a discussion about the 80 Georgia National Championship team. Now, you told me that if y'all would have played them, it would have been easy pickings. Hershey wouldn't done that. So they told me this evening, they want you to explain how would y'all stop that bull of a running back that was freshman of the year, that ran for 1,500 yards from the third in the Heisman. How would y'all stop Herschel Walker and beat Georgia that year?
Let me say this. Okay. Here's the thing. Let me start by saying this.
Yes, sir. You got the floor.
Georgia was the national champions of that season.
Yes, sir.
We can't take that away from Georgia. And I think the thing that really gets me hyped more than anything is the fact that we should have played Georgia for the title. But the powers that be in college football in those days didn't see us as, I guess, a real contender. All I can tell you was that they ended up playing Notre Dame, who had tied a game with Georgia Tech that season, who had just got the brakes blown off of them by Southern Cal.
Yes.
They had a loss and a tie. And we had one loss by 1 point. We had beat Nebraska in Lincoln, who was the number 3 team in the country at that time. We beat them in Lincoln. The next week we played.
Wrong now.
The next week now, not back-to-back weeks now, the next week, the University of Pittsburgh went into the number 3 spot. Now, I got to say this. I'm proud of Florida State football team, but that Pittsburgh, University of Pittsburgh team was probably the most talented football team in the history of college football. And I'm going to say, including the LSU team a few years ago that had that heavy draft class with Joe Burrows, because they had about 30 other guys on that team that were all NFL ball players after that season. So, and we beat them, I'm going to say it like this. half near to death when they came to Tallahassee. So we proved ourselves. We beat 2 teams that were ranked in the top 5. Matter of fact, we were the #1 defense in the nation. So you ask me how we gonna stop Herschel? Bruh, I can't. You know, at the end of the day, what we did well was we stopped the run. We had Reggie Herring, Paul Prowski, middle linebacker. We had Ron Simmons, who was a nose guard, who was like a third linebacker in the game. And we had one of the best secondaries in the country. You know, not just because I played, but guys like Monk Bonasart, who didn't get a lot of play as far as national attention, but this guy was always in the top of the country, leading the nation in interceptions my last 2 years. Keith Jones, the strong safety who played next to me, was an academic All-American his last 2 years. These guys were real deal football players. If you don't believe me, ask Pittsburgh, ask Hugh Green, ask Ricky Jackson, the city champ, ask Mark May. No, forget all that. Ask Dan Marino if you get a chance. If Butler Lewis listens to this, just come to ask Dan Marino himself, because I don't think he would put himself ahead of Dan Marino. Anyway, and we played George Rogers. We played Jarvis Redwell. We played everybody to play. So that being said, we'll never know. And I'm going to think that we could always beat them, but we never played the game. But I really believe that we deserve the opportunity to play Georgia for the title, as opposed to Notre Dame. We were independent school. We could have played in any bowl. We were not locked down to the Sugar Bowl. We're not locked down to the Orange Bowl. We could have traveled any bowl. We could have went to the Fiesta Bowl. We could have met them in the Rose Bowl. It didn't matter. We were there, but the powers that be didn't think that we were deserving to play the game. So that being said, they're national champions. I give it to them, but I just don't personally believe they could have hung on the field with us. That's just my opinion.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now that being said, Mr. Football.
Yes, sir.
You are a true legend.
Yes,
and I say that because for so many reasons, Vincent, you love this game of football. I listen to you talk, man. I go, man, this dude know what he's talking about. You've been studying this game for a long time, since you've been a kid. Many people don't have your knowledge of the game. You know, a lot of people have an outside knowledge, but, you know, it's almost like you were inside, you know, like a player who understands the game. And so I really appreciate you being with us tonight, man. I'm excited to have you on. So listen, real quick. Right now we're in March Madness, and you know, we got a few of your teams in the game. One of your teams got put out this past week. Memphis got put out this week. Penny Hardaway got put out this week by Florida Atlantic, right? FAU from Boca Raton, Florida, down my way. And then you still got Tennessee, the Volunteers in. I like their team. They're very physical. They're a real basketball team, right? And then also you got the Arkansas Razorbacks in the mix of things. So you ought to be pretty happy right now at March Madness.
Well, as I told you this morning, true that I went to Arkansas for 4 years and they still has a heart to me. But when you look at it, Memphis is my heart. When they lost on Friday night, it was really tough to handle because I talked to several people about the loss. Because Memphis, when you look at Memphis State at the time,
right,
the basketballs, I tell people, brought the city together.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, they did. And
that's why I look at what happened this weekend, me going to Arkansas for 4 years, and I never thought I would even end up at Arkansas. I came down between the University of Arkansas and Southern University and University of Memphis.
Wow.
And I chose the Arkansas simply because I had a cousin that went up there.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't hear nothing about Arkansas until I was 12 years old in 1972.
Okay.
72-73 season, simply because that was the great run of that Memphis State team that had Larry Finch, Ronnie Robertson, that brought the city together.
Yeah.
They played the fight. They went to the Final Four and lost to Bill Walton in the Final Four game. And anybody knows about that, that's when Walton went 21 and 22 from the field. But during that season, going 2 days before Christmas, Memphis played Arkansas up there in Bond Hill Arena in Arkansas. And at the time, Bond Hill Arena, before I got on campus several years later, only seated about 6,000. But they had a guard named Martin Terry, light-skinned brother, rocking the fro like Prince. I think he was like second in the country in scoring.
Wow.
He lit Memphis up for about 43.
Wow.
And I said, you know what? Let me start following the Arkansas sports scene since we right there at the border.
Okay.
Then as I got into high school, I remember Arkansas had that great team. They had Jerry Eckwood, remember him? Jimmy Walker, Roland Sales, Ron Calcagney. They had a linebacker, Dennis Winston, that played with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know how nasty he was.
Yeah, he was nasty, brother.
And I started following him, but I had no intention of going to that school until I had a cousin. His name was Samuel Turner. He went to Glory a couple years ago, same age with me. And true story, Bobby, I never took a visit. Wow. Wrong move. I went up there and let him take the visit. I said, hey, cuz, how's Fayetteville? Oh, man, they got bowling alleys all on the floor. They got malls. So me and him being the same age, he born in June, I'm born in July. I said, I'm going to take his word. Then I got accepted by Arkansas academically.
Yes.
So I said, hey, man, I knew my parents. I didn't want to really put my dad because he was working hard. We had a cleaning business. So I jumped at the first school. I said, I'm going to Arkansas.
Right.
True story, man. I get on campus in August. 18-year-old, man, never been apart from my family. I'm the oldest. I left 3 sisters behind, my mama and daddy. And my family don't know this. They're probably going to be watching this video. We drove up in the middle of the night on a Sunday night.
Okay.
3 a.m., Fayetteville, like a 5-hour drive. I checked into the dorm. First of all, I knew I was in trouble in this dorm, Buchanan Drake, which was an old barracks, old dorm from the 50s.
Okay.
Awfully hot at that time. Imagine being hot in Fayetteville, Arkansas in the summer in August.
Yeah, bro.
And nobody's made it to campus. I made it up there like 3 or 4 days. And that Sunday, my dad and mom and everybody said, well, we gonna leave, and didn't no crying, nothing. And so they went back. And so when they left, man, I had little tears come. They don't know. I said, I really realized I'm on my own. I had never been away from my family in my 18 years of life.
Wow.
And I was up there. And so Fayetteville at the time, and it's nobody on campus, Bobby.
Right.
So I'm walking around campus, and I stumbled on to this fraternity. You can read between the lines, SAE. Went through these double doors. They would have like a freshman, I guess, orientation program.
Right.
Open the door. This is no lie, Bobby. About 800 freshmen of SAEs. When I opened the door, all of them busted out laughing at one time.
What? Oh my God.
I said, Lord, have mercy. What have I got myself into? I said, what I got myself into, bro?
I love it.
So the first week of school, my daddy would tell you this. I called home every day, man.
Wow.
And
Really?
my dad told me, man, you can't be running up the phone bill and so many words. And I realized I was on my own at 18 years old.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
So I give my cousin one credit. And bless his soul, Samuel Turner. He had stayed out all night and got basketball tickets because Bond here had expanded from 6,000 to 9,000. He got season tickets. So he got me a ticket right there on the floor.
Wow, man. Okay.
So I'm kind of in tune with Arkansas basketball because of the previous year. Remember, they had went to the Final Four with the three triplets: Marvin Delp, Sidney Moncrief, Ron Brewer. But Ron Brewer and Marvin Delp had graduated when still had Sidney Moncrief.
Right, exactly.
And man, let me tell you something. During my 4 years at the Southwest Conference, man, I saw some superstars come through that conference.
Oh, I can
and
imagine.
that's why in the Southwest Conference at that time, one thing, Eddie Sutton, who's the coach at the time, a Mo Abba disciple, he loved defense, man.
Yeah, that's good.
And I remember the first year, man, I was on the sidelines, and Arkansas got to the Elite Eight, lost to Larry Bird in Indiana State in the Midwest Regional Final. But man, the star-studded players that was coming through the Southwest Conference.
Yeah, man. Yeah, bro.
Vinnie Johnson at Baylor.
Vinny! Yes, sir.
Terry King at Baylor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Jeff Taylor at Texas Tech. His son played at Vanderbilt. Texas had Jim Kravitz, Ron Baxter, and they had a son by the name of LaSalle Thompson.
Okay.
Then Rice had Ricky Pierce and Willis Wilson. And then, of course, what is the Final Four this year? The Houston Cougars under Guy Lewis, who used to have a towel in his mouth.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And man, I tell everybody, during that time, it's a miracle. You got to understand that some coaches, that's insane. How did Guy Lewis then win on national championship? Rob Williams, Otis Birdsong, Clyde the Glide Drexel, Larry Mishaw.
They had him, bro.
Michael Young, Albert Franklin.
Yes, sir.
Cadillac Greg Anderson, Ricky Winslow, and then Akeem Olajuwon. And I saw great basketball. But getting back to this weekend, tell you a true story. I got off work. I'm a courier, deal with papers. That's what I do in my spare time. I am a little duckies. So I want to see the game, and I can't remember who was playing on Saturday. Now, I want to see Auburn and Houston.
Okay.
So I decided not to go to Buffalo Wild Wings in Douglasville because the previous week I had poor service.
Okay.
And I didn't like how they treated me in there. Okay. So I went to a Mexican restaurant that I like to go to. And I came in, and Bobby, they didn't have TBS or TNT on their TV.
Wow. But
they had ESPN and CBS. So I said, okay, man, put it on the Arkansas-Kansas game.
Right.
I came in the second half when Kansas was up by 12, I believe, 45-33. And that last 11 minutes of that game, it brought me back to memories of Moncrief.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
U.S. Reed. And one thing about Arkansas this season, they have came under a lot of scrutiny because they had the number one recruiting class. They had, you look at the boards now, the NBA draft, I got two kids who are going to go in the first round, Nick Smith and Anthony Black. But for some reason, they went 8-10 in the SEC and they couldn't get over the hump. But I said, you know what? I said, Eric Musselman, who I said is an outstanding coach. Dad was a tremendous coach. Bill was a great coach in the CBA. I knew if that guy can do it in Nevada. And then the team he had last year with this young team, I said Arkansas was going to be a tough out.
It'll be all right.
They had a tough game on Thursday when they beat Illinois. That was a real good Illinois team. But that Kansas game, that brought back a lot of memories, man. It brought back a lot of memories. And that game was back and forth. And what I'm talking about, Larry Bird and Magic. When I'm talking about Dale Green.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? With Louisville, with Derek Smith and Wiley Brown.
Hey, man.
And Isaiah with Isaiah Thomas. And then finally MJ, James Worthing, Perkins when they took down Georgetown. Because see, back then, even though we got athletes that are more explosive, but not football and basketball, you earned them flowers back then.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. No, but I tell you what, man. I think March Madness, Vincent, is one of the most exciting times in the year.
Yes.
And what makes it exciting? I mean, let's be honest. Everybody's looking for the upset games. And every year there are some major upsets in March Madness, right?
Yes, sir.
And but in football, in college football, it is a sport that really has not developed their playoff system the way I think it should be, right? I know in the near future, I think in a couple of years, we're going to have a 10, 12 team playoff system, right? And I'm happy about that. But I still hear people say this, well, you get them teams that are not that good. They're going to get in the playoffs. They're going to mess it up. They're going to just get killed all the time. I say, no. I beg to differ. I beg to differ. I say, that's why you have to play the game. Because if you're not ready, if you're not right, if you're not prepared, you stand a chance of losing games. I don't care how big you are. I don't care if you're the number one team in the country. You will have a chance to lose the game. And so I say these other teams do deserve an opportunity to compete on a high level. So now we're going to get to that, and we're going to see it. And we're going to see it, right? Now, I don't expect in football, I don't expect for the number 10 seed to be the Alabama or Georgia right now, but it's coming. It's going to happen, right? I remember, you probably can tell me, in the Orange Bowl, Arkansas played Oklahoma one year.
Yeah, my year before I got up there, it was my senior year in high school, and
76, 77?
77, 78 Orange Bowl.
And I never forget it. Oklahoma,
when you was a freshman at Florida State.
When I was a freshman, Oklahoma was loaded.
Yes, sir.
Lou Holtz was the coach at Arkansas.
Yes, sir.
And Lou Holtz had about 3 or 4 kids, his best players,
suspended.
They got in some kind of trouble, and he suspended them for the game. And I kept saying to myself, how can you suspend your best players against Oklahoma? Guess what he did? Without those players, he went in there and he put it on Oklahoma.
Well, I think that when you look back at that time, I think the 3 players was Ben Cowens, Donnie Bobo, and Michael Forrester. But one thing that back during that time, Arkansas, for some reason, was real deep at the running back position. People didn't realize how good Roland Sales was back then. He was a fullback, and they moved him to tailback for that game.
Okay.
But if you remember, he had over 200 yards rushing in that football game. And the thing about it, he really never did nothing else since then. He ended up becoming a 6th round pick, I think, in the 80 draft.
Okay.
And the thing what I learned about Lou Holtz, Lou Holtz was a guy that believed in having a lot of depth at certain positions.
Absolutely.
Running back, and the D-line, and linebackers. If you look at the history of Arkansas, you look at the players that got drafted. Jimmy Walker didn't, but he was All-American. Billy Ray Smith was a 3-time All-American. George Stewart, who ended up becoming a coach, was All-American as freshman. He had a serious injury into the season on the offensive line. But he always had backs, man, from Gary Anderson, Daryl Bowles, James Tolbert. I remember, Bobby, my freshman year, I came on campus. Arkansas had 4 of the top 10 running backs in the country.
Wow.
They had a young man named Thomas Brown that was out of Montgomery. I don't know how he got out of the state of Alabama.
Wow.
They had James Tolbert, who was the number 1 player in the state of Arkansas. Then they had
James.
Yeah. Then they had Gary Brown. He was the number 3 player. And then they still had Ben Cowens and Michael Forrester, who was seniors along with Jerry Eckwood. So at that time, Arkansas had a lot of depth. But that game right there, trying to put Arkansas on the map.
Man,
but when I went there my 4 years, they never achieved what they could have achieved.
Right.
Their best team was the 83 team the year I left. And you remember they tied SMU and ended up losing their last game to Texas, and then lost the ball game. But this is a real keep it show, right? 100 yards football. Back then, I did a video this morning on Condrich Holloway.
Okay.
First Black quarterback in the Southeastern Conference.
Yes.
Well, back in 80, 81, Arkansas wasn't playing no African-American quarterback.
That's right.
So that was a lot of things that I think kept their team from really going over the top.
Right.
And then Arkansas had two quarterbacks, Danny Bradley, who ended up going to play at Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
They had another guy named Eric Mitchell that went to Oklahoma. Then they had another guy, Philip Dillard, super football player out of Texarkana, Arkansas. Never got on campus, but he committed to Oklahoma.
Right.
But the powers to be, Lou Holtz got tired of the administration. He wanted an African-American quarterback. You can check the stamps, but think about this. When he got to Notre Dame, the funniest thing, who did he win a national championship with?
That's right. That's right.
Who came after him?
That's
Can I say Tony Rice?
That's
Kevin McDougal?
Exactly.
Because Lou Holtz believed in that wide set option game.
Right. But so see, you understand something. You talking about Condress Holloway at Tennessee. We're talking about the Southeast now, right? So, I mean, and you don't have to just call it the SEC conference. It was every college in the Southeast, right? Was that way, right? And so, and then he came in and he changed the game, brother. He changed the game. And then Sam Cunningham, you know, when USC played Alabama, he changed the game. And Bear Bryant said, "Well, I got to get me one of those." And then next year, he had Wilbur Jackson, became the first All-American at the University of Alabama running back. And then next thing you know, the South got integrated. But as a kid, Vincent, see, I played quarterback growing up. Right? And so I was always looking for guys who looked like me. I mean, the NFL, even though I didn't have anybody playing that position in the NFL, I love Roger Staubach. Why? Because he played more like me than anybody.
Yes,
and I love Fran Tarkenton. And I really appreciated Fran Tarkenton because when I watched him play as a kid, he taught me one thing. When you start scrambling, don't just run to try to score touchdowns or make first downs. Scramble to pass the ball. And so I would always look downfield, just watching him playing as a little kid on TV. There were only two guys that looked like me playing that position. So the next thing you know, I started looking at teams like Ohio State. Ohio State had a quarterback named Cornelius Green. He had the red shoes. He played with Archie Griffin. He was a starting quarterback. So the African-American quarterbacks can go up north or can go out west and play. But at that time, they couldn't play in the SEC or in the South. Let's just say the South, right? Because I even remember when Georgia Tech got Eddie Michon, right? And it was like, oh, wow, what? You know, we got another one, right? And then I remember the University of Florida when they got Don Gaffney. See, the Gaffney brothers out of Jacksonville. The oldest brother, Don, was a quarterback, starting quarterback at the University of Florida. So I can remember that when I was a kid. But, man, look how far we've come.
And there was a stat, man, that when I was doing my research on Condress Holloway, don't you know last year there was 8 African-American quarterbacks that started in the SEC last year.
You see what I'm saying?
8. Yeah,
it's okay now, right? It's okay. You know, I used to always felt like I had to defend myself as a former quarterback because, you know, everybody in Atlanta or everybody know me as a defensive back. But everybody in Palm Beach County, and I'm 60, I'll be 64 in a couple months, right? I still get asked this question every year. It don't fail every year. When I'm home, man, how come you didn't go to college and play quarterback? How come you? Well, it was a different time. That's how I was. That's how I would say it. It was a different time, and it wasn't.
I know you had one school, Michigan State. Were they looking at you to playing QB?
No, they didn't look at me to play quarterback. They wanted me as a defensive back as well.
Okay.
But at that time, Michigan State was they. I mean, Jimmy Ray played quarterback. One of my former coaches at the Falcons, Jimmy Ray was a starting quarterback at Michigan State. In the late 60s, him and Bubba Smith was on that team. You remember that great team they had?
Oh, yeah. George Webster, Bubba Smith, Gene Washington, Clint Jones.
Washington.
Yeah, wow. the 66 team, which I still say today. Matter of fact, I'm gonna do probably video. I still consider the '66 season one of the greatest seasons in college football because that's when I got introduced to Tennessee State, and my father took me to see Tennessee State play a couple of games up there in old Nashville, Halley Stadium as they called it.
Well, you know, that was good football, Vincent.
Yes, sir.
That was good football. A lot of people don't understand it. You know, we talk about HBCUs today. It's a different HBCU than what you and I saw as kids.
Absolutely.
Because remember, the Southeastern Conference teams or any team in the South was not recruiting the best athletes to come to their schools to play football. So all the great Black athletes that went to the all-Black high schools, they ended up at Florida A&M, Tennessee State, Grambling, Alcorn State, Jackson State, Bethune-Cookman, Edwards Waters. They all went to those schools. South Carolina State, they all went to those schools. Maryland State, you know, they couldn't go to Alabama and play. They couldn't go to Florida State and play. They couldn't go to Miami, or they couldn't go to Tennessee to play. So the best play, I did something when I was a rookie, you know, because I'm so FSU proud. You know that, right? So we had a lot of players in the league, you know, when I got in the league in 1981. So, you know, we were trying to figure out, we got in an argument in the locker room, me and some of my teammates, the Falcons. What college team had the most NFL ball players? And so we thinking, well, it's probably Notre Dame or Ohio State, Southern Cal.
Mm-hmm.
In 1981, Grambling had more NFL ball players in the National Football League than any other school in the country.
I can see that.
Well, think about it. Think about all those old dogs. Sammy White. All of them, they played at Grambling. Everson Walls. Grambling. You know, and so all those guys, they went to HBCU schools because they were not recruited in the South. And so you had the best players, you know, the absolute best players in the nation playing in the South at HBCUs back in those days.
Well, I always say this, my favorite Super Bowl team is the 70 Kansas City Chiefs because they had, I can remember now, 13 to 18 players from HBCUs.
Yes, they did.
That played on that team. And the reason I really fell in love and still love them today because they had Jimmy Marcellus, who started as a rookie, and I seen play at Tennessee State. And then, of course, the great Otis Taylor, kudos to him. He died last week, still not in the Hall of Fame. But outstanding. I think one of really the first athletic big wide receiver.
Man, he was a monster.
That was very athletic. Mm-hmm. And then they had all those brothers, and then they had the little man from Purdue, Lenny Dawson, the gangster who had got that week they said got busted for gambling. He was gambling. And he just smoked a cigarette in the locker room. And then you had Hank Stram. And they had more Black players. Let's keep it real than anything. And they came in.
Willie Lanier.
Yes, sir.
Otis. You can just go down the list. Mike Garrett. They had guys, man. They had guys. Buck Buchanan. Man, they had dudes on that team, man. And then you had one of the best corners of all time, Emmett
Thomas.
Emmett Thomas, man. Oh, man, what a great player. Number 18. All those guys played at HBCUs. Every one of them.
And I think what's so sad is that a lot of people don't know those guys were really coached up, man. And they wouldn't have been, and to be honest about it, you know, I don't want to offend nobody, but to me, they really say the National Football League in the AFL in the 60s.
Well, let's think about it. Let's just think about it. The game changed.
Yes, sir. Speed.
Bruh, the game changed.
Yeah, amen.
All right. And so, and the game is still evolving, right? And when you look on that field now, you know, I think it's about 7% of the rosters are filled with African-American men. That pretty much came from West Africa. Let me go that deep. One of the things the NFL need to do, I say this all the time, and I'm willing to be the one to go do it. If anybody listen, Vincent, you know, we need to start in West Africa, a football school, developing training football players in West Africa. That's where we all come from. You know, and now you're seeing the game, you're seeing names in the game with African names. They're not Butler anymore. They're not Williams. You know, they're not Johnson. They're not Sanders. They're coming with their African names over here, right? And you see so many African names on the back of jersey numbers now. But we all came from West Africa, so that's the way I look at it, right? So we should develop that, man. You know, they should send a couple of Vincent. They should send me and you over there and let us develop some of that talent, bro. And we'll just stay over there. We'll recruit, and we'll teach them the game because they're very athletic and they'll get it.
And they will come with a work ethic.
And they come with a work ethic. Hey man, let me tell you something. I really believe this. Why do you think football in the South is so dominant? Period.
I think number one, if you look really, if you look at the South and you look at the history, look what Eddie Robinson did, man.
No doubt. But why? What about the South? That makes
well, I can tell you when you look at football, when you look at people in the South in general, remember a lot of my people, they migrated and went to Chicago.
That's right.
A lot of people migrated, went to Detroit. But when you look at all those people that migrated, they still from Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida.
They still from there.
And you ask me, well, God honest is that it's something in the water in them southern states, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, a different ball game in the 50s and 60s. Like I said, I always tell people I don't know how I would have grew up in the 60s or the 50s or the 40s. I don't want to go there when my parents did. And your parents, if you go back and really look at what they had to face, man.
Oh, it was tough.
And you looking at that, you say, hey, man, but it's something in the water because that the black athlete or the African-American athlete in the South is more focused, more dedicated, and then it's natural ability and the work ethic.
It's all that. But you know what I really believe, what gives us an advantage? The heat.
Yep.
And we can deal with the heat better than any group of people, right? Better than any group of people. We were born for the heat, right?
Yes, sir. Sir.
And so that being said, when we play football, and I can only speak of my life, and I know it's still the same in most places in the South. You know, I was home a few weeks ago and got honored by the African diaspora.
Amen.
And then when I was home, I had a chance, you know, our youth program was in their spring training. I had a chance to go and speak to the kids. We're talking about group age 9 and under, Vincent, who haven't lost a game in 3 years. You know, they just dominating everybody in the South. But they're outside working out year round. Now we're talking about, I was there February. They're working out and it's hot, right? Well, my friends who live up north, their kids got on coats and jackets.
Yes, sir.
They're not getting the reps like my kids in South Florida or kids in Georgia getting. Nobody can get those reps like those kids, especially in South Florida, especially in Texas, especially in California, right?
Right.
So you look at the major hubs of football, and it has to do a lot with the warm weather. And kids get more reps. You know, kids now, and this is crazy, but it's not crazy at the same time, right? So we see kids now doing 7-on-7 at 8 years old in Florida. Now, I want you to hear that now. They're out there practicing. They got 7-on-7.
That's real now.
Bruh. Man, I saw kids throwing the ball on that 9 and under team when I was out there a month ago. I'm like, man, this is crazy.
Footwork off the chain.
Off the chain. They're playing cover 2, playing 1 free. playing cover three. I mean, like, what? But they're being coached up at a young age. So these kids understand the game. And so I tell parents, and this is the thing about parents, especially with mamas, right? A lot of mamas don't want their kids to play football at a young age. Well, I tell you one thing, if your kid don't play at a young age now, he's going to be left behind. Because kids are getting reps at the age of 6. My son Bryce, who had a 6-year NFL career, he started playing football when he was 7 and never missed a year until he stopped playing the NFL. So his development from the time he was 7, Vincent. Come on. So you got kids playing that young. Now you imagine this. Imagine a kid who started playing football in the South. He's 6, 7 years old. When he get 12, and let's say a kid from the North move in the neighborhood and say, oh, I want to play football. He going to get his brains blasted, right?
Yes, sir.
These kids are going to be so much more advanced and they're already used to the weather. Now, this kid coming in for the first year, he worried about the gnats that's going around his helmet in practice. He worried about the thorns that's in the grass. Man, these kids ready to go. They trained, they ready to go already. So these kids are being developed, and I think a part of it is the weather. So we get a chance to get more reps in. See, when you and I was kids, we didn't have a lot of organized stuff like they do now. All right, but guess what we had? We had street ball. Oh, street ball was when I was a kid, Vincent. Street ball was king, bro, and it was organized by the kids. And we had a playoff system and everything through my hometown. And to this day, the dudes in my hometown brag about what side of town, who was the best footballer in there on what side of town. We ain't talking about youth football. We're talking about street football. Is it Carver Park? Is it Ponciana? Is it Jefferson Manor? We got a group in Delray called the City Boys. They're all Southwest 6th Avenue because everything that's in the city is right there. And so those kids there were lifting weights at a young age. Man, most of us ain't know nothing about no weights. We was just playing ball. But those kids was physical. They were always more physical. So we get those valuable reps. We get them in, and then shoot, by the time we're playing organized football. I'll tell you one thing. When I started playing organized football, I was 9 years old. Now check this out. We had great coaches, but couldn't one of my coaches tell me how to run no football?
Yes, sir.
That was in me when I showed up. Could not one of my coaches show me how to throw a football? I never had a coach told me, took the ball, grip the ball like this. Bro, I came there with that. I can throw it, and I can run it, and I can catch that ball. So those are the 3 skills that I had just before I got there. Now you got a system. Show me your system. But you can't teach me athleticism. You can't teach me the thing. You can't teach speed. I was born with that. So those are the advantages I think we have in the South. And it's all over, man. I mean, you look at some of the best cornerbacks in the nation come from Mississippi.
Or Florida.
Terrell Buckley. Where he from?
Pascagoula.
Pascagoula. Right? Where Ramsey from? See,
He's the exception. He's from Nashville, right outside Brentwood Academy.
You see what I'm saying? So they getting reps. All those guys get reps, and they special. They special, man. So yeah, man. So hey, we love the South. And, football is king for us. It's not gonna change. It's always gonna be king. I'm really looking forward to Vincent. When we go to a 10-12 team playoff in college football, it's gonna make it more live than it is today. People think it's exciting now. You just wait till we get there. Because now think about a team like a Memphis, right? That's playing good football, right? But now they're going to get a chance because of this 12 team, 10 team to get into the show. And then the first time they thump Alabama, it's going to happen now. I mean, everybody at home saying, oh, he crazy. It's going to happen. Upsets happen in every sport, in every way you can imagine. So it's going to happen, right? It's going to change the dynamic for that school. And people are never going to forget it. And then it's going to help their recruiting. And now, all of a sudden, you're going to see these teams get a little bit more balanced, right? Because, look, I don't have to go to Alabama and wait 2-3 years to play. I can go to Memphis now because they're a playoff contender team, and I can get in the show.
So was that people don't realize this. I'm gonna say this one more time. This gentleman right here, I'm gonna say this one more time. Let me get my excitement together. People really don't know how far Florida State came under you. I believe, what was it, 5 and 6 your first year, right?
No, 5 and 6 the year before I came.
Okay.
And then we came in as freshmen and went 10-2.
And this is why the gentleman right here, he's talking about Florida State and talking about the playoffs. Y'all were independent. No affiliation with no conference.
We played everybody too, Vincent. And that was part of Coach Bowden's method. Let's go to Nebraska. Let's go to Michigan. Let's go to the big house. Let's go to Ohio State. And every time we went there like that, we busted them up. Every time. I can see T-Buck right now picking that ball off. That's my house. And going to the house, showing everybody the ball. Bruh, we play ball. And so we weren't running from nobody.
So that means the practices at Florida State, going back and you was there up to, let's say, Mr. Buckley, they must have been very, very competitive. But the thing that I really admire and respect about your program, man, is that y'all came out and people don't. Y'all weren't even affiliated with a conference.
That's right. That's right.
And y'all came out of nowhere and y'all played anybody, anywhere. Y'all went to Nebraska back-to-back years, correct?
Yeah. And we went to LSU back-to-back years. Beat them in Baton Rouge both times. Bro, we ain't run from nobody. And remember, Florida is always on our schedule. Now, Florida was a nobody back then. Y'all forgive me, but it's the truth. Florida was not that good in my time. We beat them 4 in a row. And so, but we played Mississippi State. We played the LSUs. We played Nebraska. We played Pittsburgh. We went up to Pittsburgh. We played Ohio State up there. We played Michigan up there. Now, we did not run from anybody. And you look at our schedule. Another thing about that Georgia team, this is the last thing I'm going to say about Georgia. That year, I think they played one team that was ranked in the top 20. I think Florida was ranked something like 14th or 15th, if I'm not mistaken. And Georgia beat them on the last play of the game, a crossing route by Lindsey Scott. The last play of the game, won the game. They were in a dogfight. They won the game on that play. That's the only team they played. They never played a top 10 team the whole year. So, anyhow, too late to do it.
When you left Florida State, did you ever, after y'all left Florida State, did you ever think y'all would elevate to the program that y'all are now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, see, the thing was, the way we played, we had fun, man. Vincent, we had fun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had fun. And we played at a high level. And we had a young coach in Coach Bowden, who was, a lot of people don't remember Coach Bowden in those days. Most people think, when they think about him, they think about this older man on the sideline who's not coaching. He just got his arms folded. But when I got there, he was in people's face. He was full of energy, and he'll tell you in the locker room, if you wasn't playing right, he'd get on you, right? But here's the beauty. Never cursed one time in my 4 years of college. He had his own words, dadgummit. That's as close as he got.
What about Mickey Andrews?
Well, Mickey Andrews was not there at the time.
Okay. That's right.
Ask him about Mickey Andrews. Mickey Andrews, by far, one of the greatest coaches in Florida State history. I love Mickey Andrews. I've got to know him, even though I didn't play for him. I've gotten to know him over the years. What a great man. But I played for Jack Stanton, who's the DB coach and the defensive coordinator. A hard man, the hardest coach I've ever had in my life. Right. And so, and he was hard, but he loved us, man. He coached everybody the same. He coached every minute detail, Vincent. I mean, he would not let you. I mean, if you were too high in your back pedal,
yes, sir,
he was going to punish you. You're going to have to run extra. You know, he always had a punishment for not playing full speed or not playing your technique right. There was a punishment for it. And so we were always conscious of a technique. So I had to be low. If you see any of my college tape and I'm backpedaling, I'm not high. I'm low. You see me low, and then you see us running to that ball. I mean, we were getting 8, 9 people to that ball every time, bro. We was getting there. And you'll see if I'm playing left corner and they throw a go route on the other side of the field, you'll see if you can see the whole frame of the film, you'll see me turn and run over there like it's just 10 yards away. The thing was with my coach, if my body did not appear in the frame before the next play started, he gave me a loaf. I want you to think about that. I'm playing left corner. They throw a bomb on the right side, not my side, the other side. And before that film go to the next play, if my body don't appear in that frame, he called it a loaf, and I got to run extra. So we were always running. We were like ninja warriors, man. We were getting to the ball. We had a meeting at the ball, bro. We was getting to that ball. We were knocking heads off. We was causing turnovers. And, man, it was fun to play on that defense.
My final question of the evening, I also work with some Florida Gators. No disrespect. They want to ask you this evening. Okay. In the game that you had your coming out party, did you and Collinsworth do a lot of talking back and forth that game?
No, we didn't. Chris and I have been enemies since high school.
Oh, okay.
So we started butting heads because we were both quarterbacks in high school. And so we played them my senior year, and they deemed his team the best team in the whole state of Florida, right? They were big. He was the quarterback. Chris is 6'4", right? And can run, right? And so I got an article. I'll let you see it one day. Matter of fact, I may take a picture of after the show and send it to you. Of me and Chris, who was going to win. They kept giving Chris the check mark. Okay, all right. So they came down there. Make a long story short, we put that thing on him. And I threw the game-winning touchdown right over his hands because he played safety on defense. I threw the game-winning touchdown right over his finger to Jerome Burgess in the end zone. Bam! And we win the game. But so we go back competing against each other in high school. So by the time we got to college, man, we both had our eyes was bloodshot red for each other. We didn't want the other guy to do good at all. But, I just so happened to outdo him, when I was at Florida State. So,
but his teammate, Reggie Herring, came to Florida State.
Hey, Chris should have came with him, but he didn't. He should have came with him, but he didn't. So we had to put that thing on 4 years in a row. Bro, we just had to do what we had to do. And but Chris was a great. Put it this way: no Chris Collinsworth, no Bobby Butler. Yes, sir. Think about it. Because the way I competed against Chris Collinsworth, that's part of how I got to be a first rounder.
Absolutely.
The way I competed against Marty McDowell. I don't know if you remember Marty McDowell.
Oh, yeah, big boy from Mississippi State, man. He was big and fast, boy.
So those two guys right there, when I faced those two guys right there, all I had to do was beat those two guys right there. And I beat both of them every time. I caught more balls than they ever caught on me.
Yes, sir.
And then in the Florida game, not only would I get a pick every game, I'm going to get a block kick in every game, at least one.
That's what a lot of people don't know, that you led the country in block kicks.
Well, to this day, when I left Florida State in 1981 as a player, how many years ago that? How can we count it? That's 42 years. 42 years ago. I left. When I left there 42 years ago, Vincent, I was the all-time leading kick blocker in Florida State history, and I still remain today the all-time leading kick blocker in Florida State history.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, y'all, that's our show tonight, man. It's been a pleasure. Hey, Mr. Football, man, love you, man. Hey, we got to get back on our draft, NFL draft, upcoming season.
Yes, sir.
In the near future here in the next week or so. Get that going before we get to the 2023 NFL draft to kind of go over some of the best players in the country and see who's going to get wealthy in the next month, right?
Well, we got some things working behind the scenes with 100 yards of football. I don't want to disclose that right now, but we might bring it to your living rooms on a more high scale level. And hopefully that'll work out. And of course, our NFL draft coverage is going to be coming up. We're going to do it a little bit different this year. We're only going to cover the first round and the real players that's going to be the picks in the first round. Last year, the last couple of years, we were going to each round, but I decided through some we had some defects in 100 yards football that I was going to shut it down to just the first round. But that being said, I can have the best person help me do it, especially breaking down the cornerback position, Mr. Bobby Butler, you, sir.
Absolutely.
And I know you really high. I don't know who you high on as the top corner in the draft. I would say I love the boy from South Carolina, Cam Smith, but I don't know who you like. You might like the Gonzalez kid out of Oregon.
Cam Smith is nice, but you know, Vincent, there's some things. And I know the game of football has changed over the years, right? Everybody's throwing the football now. Everybody's throwing the football. But you know, to have a real corner, it takes a little more than just cover skills. You got to have.
I'm looking, you're being big and physical now. Look like.
Well, you got to have that dog in you.
Yes, sir.
You got to have that Kenny Johnson in you, one of my former teammates. Kenny Johnson can get beat 12 times, and he'll tell you straight up, you ain't beat me yet.
Yes, sir.
You got to have that kind of flair to you, right? Short memory, compete every down. You know, a guy catching a ball on you can't hurt your feelings. It's just going to motivate you to do better, right? And you got to have that swag. You got to have that swag. If you ain't got that, bruh, you don't look confident. And I'll tell you right now, that's the one position you better be confident. You better be confident because
they're coming at you.
Man, you got a lot of guys who can catch the ball. And think about this. I know we live in a different era now. We're playing ball in a different era. You do have receivers now that are 5'7", 5'8", 5'9", playing the slot position, right? But you know, back in my day, you know, everybody was 6'2" or better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I even competed against Harold Carmichael, who was 6'8". We had a lot of receivers that was 6'6" in the league. Dave Logan from Cleveland Browns back in the day, right? So back then, the average corner was about 5'10" to 5'11". So how do you compete? Athleticism. I used to want them to throw the ball up high to Harold Carmichael.
You throw it up.
Y'all, hey, but see what people don't know about me, I'm faster than those guys. And I'm a world-class long jumper out of high school. See, those kind of things people never knew about me. And that I was a great diver. I was a 1.5 meter diver.
Yes, sir.
And growing up as a kid, right? So I had hops and sprints. So I love that. Throw it up. I'm gonna go get it. I'm gonna get there at the highest point before he get there.
Yes, sir.
Let me say it that way. So
Yes,
anyway, so you got to have those kind of guys who are confident and who has the ability to do that extra stuff that you can't. Even a 40 time is not going to show that. So you watch the tape and it'll tell you everything you know about a kid, right? So listen, ladies and gentlemen, that's our show tonight. Hey, if you love the show tonight, hey, comment and share with your friends. Let them know about us on 100 Yards of Football. I'm your host of this legend segment, Bobby Butler. And tonight, we had the incredible, the phenomenal, Mr. Football himself, Mr. Vincent Turner. Vincent, thank you for joining us tonight, brother.
My final words. Ooh, pig sweet Razorbacks.
Peace.
Peace.